Blaise Pascal, a name that resonates through the corridors of science and spirituality, was a man who dared to bridge the seemingly irreconcilable worlds of faith and reason. Born in Clermont-Ferrand, France, in 1623, he was a child prodigy whose intellect would leave an indelible mark on mathematics, physics, and philosophy. His father, a tax collector, recognized his son's extraordinary abilities and took it upon himself to educate the young Blaise. By the age of 16, Pascal had already produced a significant treatise on the subject of projective geometry, known today as Pascal's theorem. This early work demonstrated a mind capable of grasping and expanding upon the most complex mathematical concepts of his time. His intellectual curiosity was not confined to the abstract world of mathematics. He was also a keen inventor. At the age of 19, in a bid to help his father with his laborious tax calculations, Pascal invented the first mechanical calculator, the Pascaline. This remarkable device, a precursor to the modern computer, could perform addition and subtraction, a revolutionary feat for its era. Pascal's work in physics was equally groundbreaking, particularly his experiments with atmospheric pressure. He conclusively proved that a vacuum could exist, a concept that was fiercely debated by the scientific community at the time. His work laid the foundation for the development of hydrodynamics and hydrostatics, and the SI unit of pressure, the Pascal, is named in his honor. However, it was a profound mystical experience in 1654 that would forever alter the course of Pascal's life and work. He recorded this event on a small piece of parchment, which he sewed into his coat and carried with him until his death. This night of fire, as it came to be known, marked a turning point, shifting his focus from the pursuit of scientific knowledge to the exploration of faith and the human condition. Pascal began to grapple with the limitations of reason in addressing the ultimate questions of life, death, and the existence of God. He argued that the human mind, while capable of great intellectual feats, was ultimately insufficient to comprehend the infinite and the divine. This led him to formulate one of his most famous philosophical arguments, Pascal's wager. The wager is not a proof of God's existence, but rather a pragmatic argument for believing in God. Pascal posited that if one bets on the existence of God and is right, the reward is infinite, eternal life. If one is wrong, the loss is finite, one's earthly life. Conversely, if one bets against the existence of God and is right, the gain is finite, earthly pleasures. But if one is wrong, the loss is infinite, eternal damnation. Therefore, from a purely rational standpoint, the most logical choice is to wager on the existence of God. This argument, while controversial, highlights Pascal's unique approach to faith, grounding it in a form of probabilistic reasoning. Pascal's most significant philosophical work, the Pensées, was a collection of fragments and notes that he intended to assemble into a comprehensive defense of Christianity. Published posthumously, the Pensées reveals a mind wrestling with the deepest paradoxes of human existence. He famously wrote, "The heart has its reasons, which reason does not know." This statement encapsulates his belief that faith is not a matter of blind acceptance, but a form of intuitive knowledge that transcends the purely rational. For Pascal, the human condition is defined by a fundamental contradiction. We are capable of greatness, yet we are also deeply flawed and miserable. We are, in his words, the glory and the scum of the universe. This duality, he argued, can only be explained by the Christian doctrine of the fall of man and the promise of redemption through Christ. Pascal was a fierce critic of both dogmatic atheism and blind, unthinking faith. He believed that a genuine faith must be a conscious choice, a commitment made in the face of uncertainty. He saw the universe as a vast, silent, and often terrifying place, a dreadful sphere whose center is everywhere and circumference nowhere. this sense of cosmic loneliness, he believed, should drive humanity to seek solace and meaning in God. Pascal's later years were marked by chronic illness and a deepening of his religious convictions. He lived a life of asceticism, giving away his possessions and dedicating himself to prayer and charitable works. He died at the young age of 39, leaving behind a legacy that continues to challenge and inspire. Blaise Pascal was a man of profound contradictions, a brilliant scientist who questioned the limits of science, a rationalist who embraced the mysteries of faith. He demonstrated that faith and reason are not mutually exclusive, but can coexist in a dynamic and fruitful tension. His life and work serve as a powerful reminder that the human quest for knowledge and meaning is a journey that involves both the head and the heart. His work on probability theory, born from a correspondence with fellow mathematician Pierre de Fermat about a gambling problem, had far-reaching implications. This exploration of chance and probability would later inform his philosophical arguments about the rationality of belief. The Pascaline, with its intricate system of gears and weights, was a physical manifestation of his belief in a divinely ordered, clockwork universe. Yet, even in his most scientific pursuits, there was a sense of wonder, a recognition of the beauty and elegance of the natural world. His experiments with the barometer were not just about proving a scientific point, but about revealing the invisible forces that shape our world. The Night of Fire was not a rejection of his scientific past, but a recontextualization of it. He saw that the order and complexity he had discovered in the natural world were not ends in themselves, but pointers to a higher, divine order. The Pensées can be seen as an attempt to build a bridge between the God of the philosophers and scholars and the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. He understood the human need for certainty, but also recognized that in matters of faith, a leap is always required. This leap of faith was not a blind jump into the dark, but a conscious decision to trust in a reality that transcends our limited understanding. Pascal's critique of René Descartes, his contemporary, is telling. He found Descartes, I think, therefore I am to be too cold and detached. For Pascal, existence was not merely a matter of thought, but of feeling, suffering, and longing. He believed that the human heart, with its capacity for love, compassion, and despair, was a more reliable guide to truth than pure reason alone. The concept of the hidden God, Deus absconditus, was central to his theology. God does not force belief, but invites it. This idea preserves human freedom, making faith a meaningful and personal choice rather than an unavoidable conclusion. Pascal's writing style in the Pensées is aphoristic and poetic, designed to provoke thought rather than to present a systematic argument. He uses paradox and irony to expose the contradictions of the human condition and the inadequacy of simplistic answers. His influence can be seen in the works of later existentialist philosophers, such as Søren Kierkegaard and Jean-Paul Sartre, who also grappled with the themes of freedom, anxiety, and the search for meaning in a seemingly meaningless world. Pascal's legacy is not a set of easy answers, but a powerful invitation to engage in the lifelong struggle to reconcile the demands of the intellect with the longings of the soul. He remains a compelling figure because he embodies the universal human experience of being caught between the finite and the infinite, the known and the unknown. His life was a testament to the idea that a brilliant mind and a devout heart are not enemies, but partners in the quest for ultimate truth. The mathematical precision he applied to his scientific work was mirrored in the precision of his spiritual self-examination. He approached the question of God with the same intellectual rigor he applied to a problem in physics, yet he knew that the final answer lay beyond the reach of any equation. The wager, often misunderstood as a cynical bet, was actually an act of intellectual humility, an admission that reason has its limits. He was not trying to prove God in a mathematical sense, but to show that belief was a reasonable and, indeed, a wise choice in an uncertain world. Pascal's understanding of human psychology was remarkably modern. He recognized the power of habit and custom in shaping our beliefs. He suggested that by acting as if one believes, by participating in religious rituals and practices, one can cultivate a genuine faith. This was not a call for hypocrisy, but a recognition that faith is not just an intellectual assent, but a lived experience that involves the whole person. His critique of divertisement, is particularly relevant in our modern age of constant distraction. Pascal argued that we use entertainment and trivial pursuits to distract ourselves from the terrifying reality of our own mortality and the emptiness of our lives without God. He believed that only by confronting this existential dread could we be moved to seek a genuine and lasting source of meaning. The image of the thinking reed is one of his most enduring metaphors for the human condition. Man is but a reed, the most feeble thing in nature, but he is a thinking reed. The entire universe need not arm itself to crush him. A vapor, a drop of water, is enough to kill him. But even if the universe were to crush him, man would still be nobler than that which killed him, because he knows that he dies. And the universe knows nothing of this. This profound insight elevates human consciousness above the brute force of the material world. Pascal's Jansenist faith, a rigorous form of Catholicism, heavily influenced his views on grace and human depravity. This theological background gave his writings a sense of urgency and gravity, a far cry from the optimistic humanism of some of his contemporaries. He was not interested in a comfortable, convenient faith, but in a faith that could withstand the harsh realities of suffering and death. His work challenges us to this day to examine the foundations of our own beliefs, whether they be religious or secular. Or are we, like Pascal, willing to confront the void, to wrestle with uncertainty, and to make a conscious, deliberate choice about what we will live for? Blaise Pascal, the mathematician who sought the infinite, the physicist who explored the void, and the philosopher who wagered on God, remains an essential guide for the modern seeker. His journey from the certainty of science to the uncertainty of faith is a journey that resonates with the deepest chords of the human spirit. He showed that the path to faith is not a rejection of reason, but a journey that takes reason to its very limits and then dares to step beyond. Pascal's early fascination with conic sections was more than a youthful hobby. It was the beginning of his lifelong quest for underlying patterns. This search for a hidden order in the universe would become the driving force behind both his scientific and his theological inquiries. The invention of the syringe, another of his practical contributions, was a direct result of his studies in hydrostatics. He saw the same divine laws at work in the pressure of a fluid as he did in the orbits of the planets. His correspondence with Fermat on probability was not merely an intellectual exercise. It was an attempt to quantify the unpredictable. This desire to find certainty in the midst of chance is a key that unlocks much of his later philosophical work. The memorial, the parchment he carried, was a raw, emotional testament to a direct encounter with the divine, a stark contrast to his cool, logical scientific papers. This document was his personal anchor, a constant reminder of the God of joy, tears of joy he had experienced. In the Pensées, he deconstructs human pride, showing how our intellectual achievements often blind us to our own spiritual poverty. He argued that true wisdom begins with the Socratic admission of one's own ignorance. Pascal's analysis of the three orders of knowledge, the body, the mind, and the heart, provides a framework for his entire philosophy. The order of the body is concerned with physical power and worldly greatness, which he saw as ultimately fleeting. The order of the mind is concerned with intellectual and scientific knowledge, which is greater, but still limited. The order of the heart, or charity, is the highest order, concerned with divine love and grace, which is infinite and eternal. He believed that these orders were incommensurable. A king cannot command a mathematician to admire him, and a mathematician cannot prove the existence of love. Only through the heart, through an act of grace, can one ascend to the highest order? Pascal's prose is filled with vivid, unforgettable imagery, making his philosophical arguments both intellectually and emotionally compelling. He speaks of the abysses that we carry within us, the infinite void that we try to fill with finite things. This inner emptiness, he argued, is a sign that we were made for something more than this world. His work is a sustained meditation on the grandeur and misery of man, a paradox that he found both maddening and beautiful. He did not shy away from the darker aspects of the human experience, but confronted them head-on, finding in them a reason for faith. The chronic pain that plagued his later years likely contributed to his sense of urgency and his focus on the eternal. He saw his suffering not as a meaningless affliction, but as a way to participate in the suffering of Christ. This perspective transformed his pain from a curse into a form of spiritual discipline. Pascal's influence extends beyond philosophy and theology. His clear, precise, and elegant prose style had a profound impact on French literature. He is considered one of the masters of the French classical period, his writing a model of clarity and persuasive power. In the end, Blaise Pascal's life was his most compelling argument. He was a man who lived the tension between faith and reason, doubt and certainty, suffering and joy. Thus, he did not offer easy solutions, but instead, he offered a path of intellectual honesty, spiritual courage, and a relentless search for truth wherever it may lead. His legacy is a challenge to integrate the different dimensions of our being, our intellect, our emotions, our spirit, into a coherent and meaningful whole. Pascal's work on the cycloid curve, which he studied in a bout of insomnia, shows how even his moments of pain were turned towards intellectual pursuit. He saw this curve, the path of a point on a rolling circle, as a metaphor for the human journey, a combination of linear progress and cyclical repetition. His writings against the Jesuits, the provincial letters, were masterpieces of satire and irony, defending his Jansenist friends from persecution. These letters demonstrated that his deep faith did not preclude a sharp wit and a powerful command of rhetoric. He could be both a mystic, lost in contemplation of the divine, and a fierce polemicist, defending his beliefs in the public square. This ability to move between the contemplative and the active life is a hallmark of his complex genius. Pascal's wager can be seen as the ultimate application of his work in probability theory to the most important question of all. He essentially created a decision matrix for belief, weighing the potential outcomes against the probabilities. While critics argue it's a cold and calculating approach to faith, for Pascal, it was a way to clear the intellectual debris that prevents people from considering God. It was a starting point, not an end point, a way to open the door for the heart to have its own reasons. The thinking reed metaphor is a powerful assertion of human dignity in the face of a vast and indifferent universe. Our greatness lies not in our physical strength, but in our awareness of our own fragility and mortality. This self-awareness is what separates us from the rest of creation and makes us capable of seeking a relationship with our Creator. Pascal's life was a frantic race against time, a desperate attempt to articulate his vision before his frail body gave out. The fragmentary nature of the Pensées is a poignant testament to this unfinished race. Yet, in these fragments, we find a more powerful and authentic voice than in many more polished, systematic works. It is the voice of a fellow traveler, sharing his notes from the road, rather than a distant professor lecturing from a podium. Ultimately, Pascal's bridge between faith and reason was built not on abstract principles, but on the concrete reality of human experience. He invites us to look honestly at our own lives, at our own grandeur and misery, and to ask ourselves if the story of a hidden God, of fallen humanity, and a redeeming love might not be the most reasonable explanation of all.